my
This
mobile data.
conference
Let's
will
see
now
how it
be
works.
recorded.
Because I don't want to break the session today. Yep. Uh, okay. So see here, previously we have discussed on the user interfaces and we have seen a lot of controls and a whole lot of things. Okay. So let me continue forward. 1 second. Let me open the solution. In the meantime, if you have any queries, please let me know. And please let me know even if my voice breaks in the middle as well. Because I try to connect with my mobile data today. So
Or I need to answer my question yesterday.
is about your user.
Yes, on-prem user.
I asked you the further questions, but you did not reply. Huh? I want to know whether on the on-premise environment you said, I told you that I need the domain or how the users are configured. If you can show me on the screen, then I can tell you. I want to see that how it is configured. Because based on the configuration that you have done, we will be able to change it. Let's say you are using the Office 365 user for the login purpose as well. Then you can change directly from Office 365. If you have the Active Directory, the way is different. So I want to see how you have done it. If you can show me that part, then I can tell you how to change it. Unless and until I see, I can't answer that particular question because I don't know all the details.
You mean domain users?
Exactly. I want to see how exactly it is configured at your end in the on-premise environment.
Oh, you mean
Can you
how configure the user to know how to change password?
Yeah, that's right, Mohammed. But what I need is the configuration. How you have configured exactly. That's what I need. Because
But you
if I
don't.
see the environment, I can fix that within a fraction of a minute or two. I can tell you how to do that. But unless and until
But
I see the environment, yeah.
but you don't know any way to config user or
On Dynamics
change
AX, you
anything.
can add the user. The user password is not changed in Dynamics AX. Okay, you can add the
Hmm.
user, but in Dynamics AX, the user will not change the password. The password will be changed in somewhere else, and it will be affected in Dynamics AX as well. Got it? In Dynamics AX, you will add the user. He will be able to work. But coming to the password, you are not going to change in Dynamics AX. It will be somewhere else.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
import the user. The user can be able to log in. He can start working on it. But password that is not available in Dynamics AX, that will be available at the domain level. The password will be updated at the domain level, not at the Dynamics AX level. For Dynamics AX, you want a different password, and somewhere else, that's not how it is configured. Because I will tell you, in Dynamics AX, it's a application. Okay, you think it as a application. It's like Microsoft Word. In Microsoft Word, you're logging in with your user. Can you change password on the Microsoft Word? No. Dynamics AX is same. Unless and until you are using some warehouse management or some other mobile application. In case of that mobile application, the user ID and password is configured in AX. But in case of the system, whatever the application you are asking, at the application level, you will not do that. That will be done at the domain control level. Okay? The domain control level, let's say if you are using Office 365, that is under the control of Office 365. Let's say if you are using Windows Server Active Directory, it will be in the control of Windows Server Active Directory. Okay, that's how it works.
Okay.
Specific to Dynamics 365, there is no password change for the specific user that you have added, that you have imported. Okay, whereas if the user needs to change the password, that will be at that particular level, the domain level. Okay,
Okay.
so if I need to show you how to change that password in Office 360, I can show you. Whereas in your case, let me say you said on premise, so I want to see how you have set it up. If you can show me that one, I can tell you where to go and how to change the password. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Now see here. We have discussed on all these things. I think we have discussed on workspace and we have integrated the Power BI and we have seen how to work with the reports and a whole lot of things. Okay. So now I want to go with the last step. And 1 second. Oh, I don't want to close like this. I want to close everything. Close all documents. This is the good step. Okay. Let me go to forms. I see a address and let me open this and let me set this as the startup object. Okay. Now, if I expand these methods, you can see there are methods. You can see the events. Okay, we will see about the events later on. First of all, we will see the methods. In the data source, I can see the methods. If I expand this address grid, and here I can see the methods. And if I expand this control, I can see the methods. So these methods are organized at a various or a different set of levels coming to the forms. Coming to the forms, they are organized at various levels. So what are those levels? What are those levels? At the top level, the methods are organized under form. Okay, at the top level, we call them as form methods. Form methods will operate on the form and then it is going to function. It is going to apply for the functions whatever we need in the forms. And then the second one is called form data source methods. Okay, form data source methods will apply on the form data source. Form data source methods will apply on the form data source. And the third one is called form control methods. What are those? Form control methods for a specific control. Let's say you have a specific control and that for that specific control you want to do something when it is modified. You want to do something when it is clicked like that. Depending upon the form control, we will define the methods at the form control level. And these methods are again divided into the system defined methods and then the user defined methods. Okay, user defined methods. So what are system defined methods? By default, if I go to the form and then if I expand this node and then if I click on the override, if I right click and if I click on override, you can see the whole lot of methods here. All these are called form methods. All these methods are called form methods. Okay, and please remember in these form methods when you come here, as I told you in the table or at the field table field, here as well you will see few properties and all the properties as well will be seen as the methods. Hello cross form links, hello route navigation, like this you will find the form methods and properties as well included. I will show you them how you will see that. Okay, and in these form methods all these are being used by us. Yes, we are using all those, but most of them are used by system. Okay, we are not going to use all these at your time. There are only very few methods which we will use. For example, we have a method called init. The purpose of the init method is initialization. What is the purpose of the init method? The purpose of the init method is initialization. If you want to initialize the form control, if you want to initialize the form control, or if you want to initialize something new, let's say you have to have a temp data source and you want to initialize the temp data source, you will do that in the init method. You can do that. That as well can be done. Temporary data, to get the temporary data, you can do that. And similarly, the next method is called run. The next method is called run. What is run method? The run method is used to execute the business logic. For example, if you want to execute something in a asynchronous fashion, okay, whenever you are working with the code, you can run in two different fashions. What are those? One is called the synchronous mode, and the second one is called the asynchronous mode. Synchronous mode means synchronous mode means what is synchronous mode? If you have a short operation and user can wait a second or two, then you can do the synchronous operation. For example, you have an Android mobile. In your Android mobile, you are trying to open the application. Okay. And after opening the application, you will see all the information in it. Okay. So that is, if you want to hit something and get some information, that will be a sync call. Whereas the second one, you're trying to copy, okay, you're trying to copy and paste 10 GB of data. What do? Will you make it a sync or a sync? What happens if you make it in a sync mode? The screen will get frozen. Yeah, user will not be able to do anything. So what you need to do? You need to run asynchronous mode. So if you have any long running operation that you want to perform while opening the form, then we will use run async. And then in the run async, we are going to write that piece of business logic. Okay, that piece of business logic will be written in the run async. Okay, whereas you have a short piece of logic and you want to execute it right away, that's the business need, then you will do that in a run method. Okay, and then once the form is closed, what is the method called? We have a method called closed, okay, closed, cancel. These are the methods that will get called when a form is closed. Okay, so like this we have a lot of methods. We have a method called activate. What is activate? You can see here now. Okay, activate, this is the first method. What is activate? It is used to indicate the form is receiving the focus. Add history. If you want to add the address bar history, whatever there in the address bar, then you will use add history. And can close, whether the form can be closed or not. Depending upon the requirement, you are going to set it to true or false. You can see can close. Okay, if you set it to true, it will allow form to close. If you written false, it will not allow form to close. Can submit to workflow, to submit to the workflow. Close when the form is closed. Close it, cancel when the form, when you cancel, when you click cancel button on the form, when you press escape, close, then close, cancel. Okay, first to indicate the form is closed. Close it, cancel. Form is closed by using a cancel button. Closed, okay. Form is closed by using a okay button. Okay, like this there are a lot of methods, okay. Cut, do apply, do cursor. Can you see this? Okay, you can see here. Where is this? Copy, create record, cut, do apply, cursor. Like this, do refresh, reread, research. You will have a lot of form methods here. If you ask me whether we are going to use all these form methods, I will simply say no. We are going to use only few methods. From those methods, the major methods are these ones: init, run, closed, okay. And these are called, what do we call them? We will call them as the form level methods. Okay, and these are system defined methods. How to create a user defined method? You can also create a new form method. You can create it. You can simply create a new form method. You can call it as my method. Okay, and then you can simply say info, and then hello. Whatever the business logic you want to write, you can do this. So when you will go for the user defined method, let's say you are writing a code in the run method, but the code has crossed the number of lines limit. Okay, let's, by default you need to have maximum of 25 or 30 lines per method. Okay, in case of AS 2012 we used to write 120 lines maximum, and that's the limit. If you have more than that lines, right, it will throw the error saying that you are not following the best practices and you need to customize your method. So if you want to do that, if you want to split it up, then you need to create the custom methods, the user defined methods, and then you can access it. That's the way we do. That's how we need to work. Okay, that's how we define the user defined methods. Okay, and then all these are the methods at the form level. Now if you want to learn them, let's say, because sometimes people used to ask me, I want to learn all the form methods. How to do that? Simply add all these form methods, add a breakpoint, and then check when they are getting hit. Okay, and if you ask me, oh, all these methods, do you know, did you ever use? I will simply say no, yeah. I will not try to remember anything, frankly speaking. If I start remembering all these things now, what will happen? My brain will be out of memory. Okay, the memory of brain is limited here. The capacity is limited. It's like the hard disk only, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or whatever it can be, but it is limited. You cannot add as much as you can. If you want to add more amount of data, you need to remove some data from your brain. The same thing should happen. So I will never remember all these methods. Whenever needed, I'm going to use them. And frankly speaking, all the time I worked only on these three methods. Okay, I worked on the big implementation projects. Even then, I worked only on these three methods. Okay, I can say the biggest implementation projects I worked on in Dynamics AX, but I never went through other than these three methods because these three are the most useful ones. Okay, and then now you can see the second one, which is a form data source. Coming to the form data source, there are some interesting points. Okay, what are those interesting points? When I say the form data source methods, when I say form data source methods, in these form data source methods, you will have the methods similar to that of a tabular methods. Okay, whatever the methods we see in the table, we will see the same methods in form data source as well. Let's see. If I click on the override, you can see hello check, hello create, hello delete, hello edit. All these are called, what are the type of methods? All these methods are, what are these methods? Properties. All these are properties. Auto notify, auto query, auto search. This is what I said. The methods that you see will have the properties, will be the methods, both of them. Now I told you the table methods. Now you will get it out. Okay. You have a method called can create, can delete. Can create. If you want to allow the user to create the record or not, if you want to allow the user to delete the record or not, based on that we will use the create. Okay, we have the create method to for creation of the record, and then let me override few of them. Override. You can see a method called what is this? Delete. Okay, delete, and then let me override. You will see a method called come down. Deleted, deleting. I will explain you about those events later on. Again, we will come about few of methods. Execute query. This is very interesting method. Okay, in the table we have the AOS validate read. What does the AOS validate read do? The AOS validate read will hit the database and get the data. Similarly, what does this execute query do? It will execute the query in the database and then it will get the data. Okay, now you can see what else are the methods. Execute query, init, there should be something with init. See that? Init value. I have the init method, and then we have one more method called init value. This init value, I think you have seen at the table level as well. What is init value here? Is it init or init? One second. Init value. What is init value actually? It is used for initialization of the values. Okay. The same thing happens for the form data source. Now you might get it out. Oh, he's showing this method. These are available in the form data source, and then these are also available in table. Why duplication? Can anyone tell me? Why we have at the two levels? At one level it should be enough, na? And you can see the right method. Validate right, validate delete right. All these methods are available in table. All these methods are available in again form data source. Why duplication? Why duplication? Can anyone
Like
tell
we
me?
want to write the code at only form level so we can use that data source level methods.
Exactly.
Where
Now, if you see here, you have the methods at the table level. Now, if you write the methods at the table level, what will happen? All the places, let's say you're using the table on multiple forms. On 10 forms, you're using the table. And then in all the 10 forms, if you want that validation to be there, then we are going to write that at the table level. Let's say the validation you wrote, you need only at the form level. You need only at the form level. Only at that particular instance of the form, you want that validation to be done. Then we need to write the code at form data source level. This is how we need to decide. Okay, this is how we need to decide whether to write at the form level or the form data source level or where exactly. Okay, and then the next methods, let me go to data source and then you can see data source fields. I will go to this country. Again, you can see the methods here. How many places you have? You have at the form level, you have at the form data source level, you have at the form data source field level. If you remember in the table, we have only four methods: modified field value, validate field value. In modified field, we are going to write for all the fields. But whereas in the form, it works in a different way. For the data source, you will have the data source methods, data source field methods. Now let me check. If I click on the override, you can see few of methods. Modified, modified, modified. Can you see this? When the field is modified, and validate, validate, validate. Can you see this? When the field validated, and then few of them you can see the properties like the field properties, hello edit and data change. Few of them will be the properties. Okay, I want to. You can check that. Okay, and you can see here. This is how the form is organized. You need to understand this, how the form is organized, how the form data source is organized, and how the form controls are organized. Now let me go to the form control. You can see this is the address grid. I have the city. In the city, let me check the methods here. You can see there are more number of methods. In the data source field, we have seen only few methods. Whereas here, you can see more number of fields. Here as well, you can see again modified. And then here as well, you can see validate. Can you see this? And here you can see update. So like this, you will have the methods at the various levels. And you might ask me, do I need to write methods at all the levels? No, it's not needed. If you write at one point, and if you want to use them at the form level, that will be enough. It's up to you again. Okay. And depending on the business need, we need to write the methods. Sometimes there will be a hard stop. Whenever you are updating the data of the field, you need to check certain conditions and you need to do a hard stop. If you need to do that, you need to write at the form control level. This is how you need to decide. The decision should be taken based on these conditions. Okay, got it? The decision should be taken based on these conditions. Okay, just 1 minute, think about it and let me know if you find anything. I'll be back. Hope you understood about these methods well. Now, the next thing that we need to do is let's try something by adding the breakpoints for all these methods. Okay, we will try adding breakpoints for all these methods, and I will show you by writing some piece of code how they will work. Okay, let me add a breakpoint here, sorry, and then let me add a breakpoint here, and then let me add a breakpoint here as well, and then here. This is the data field. This is the return, and here write, validate write, init value, init, execute query, delete, create, this one, and this one, this one. Okay, done. Now this is how we added the breakpoints. Now let me build and set the form as the startup object, and we will run. Okay, we will debug and we will see how these are working. Okay, in the meantime, if you have any queries, please let me know.
Would we see BYOD with Power BI?
BYOD with Power BI, no, we will see with data entities. Okay, so once you know about the data entities, you can expose directly using the Power BI. Okay,
Okay.
there is no need of BYOD to expose Power BI reports. So data entities is the best option.
Okay.
Okay, build got completed successfully. Now I think I have set this as the startup object, and let me run and see what are the methods that are getting hit. Okay, please remember this is also very useful because you need to understand what is a method calling sequence. If you remember, we have seen the same for the table. The same thing we have seen again for the constructor, destructor, and everything. The same thing we need to see for form as well. Okay, this is very interesting and very important. And if you do remember, we already wrote code in form methods as well. I wrote code in run yesterday for the list panel. I don't know whether you have tried the remaining or not. And then we wrote code in the click method to update the information when the method is clicked. Okay, when the button is clicked. So I don't know whether you tried it or not. Practice is very important here. Not only here, everywhere. Whenever you're learning the programming language and you're writing some programs, practice is very, very important. Okay, and frankly speaking, most of them will think we have videos and because I used to say record because that will help you. Okay, whenever you are working in a company, let's say you are working on a data entities and you are not able to import or export the data, or let's say you are not able to consume the service. So what you can do is you can simply check the video and you can do that. I used to say that. So that is a good way, but most of the times what students used to do is they will not practice. Instead of that, they will depend on the videos. That's not going to work. If you practice, the videos will support you the best. So please practice. Okay, now let me run. The first method that called is init, and now let me press F5. The second method it will call is, let's see. Okay, it is trying to initialize all the form controls. Where did it go? Data source init. Run. Run method of the form. Okay, this is where most of the times people used to have the confusion. After init, run should triggered. Okay, this is what people used to say, but there's one more method called data source init. The first, it will initialize the form controls, and then it will initialize the form data sources. Let's say if you have multiple data sources, for all the data sources, the init method will get called. And then it will come back to the run method to execute the business logic. Now executing the business logic is finished. It will go to execute query. What is execute query? Here, the query will get executed. Oh, you might ask, can we see the query? Let me check. Just a second. Mm, okay. Query build data source. This is the query it will run. Select the first for update start from ICA address. You have not added any XPP query. You have not added any AOT query. It's a table. But what it will do? The form will construct this by itself. The form will construct the query by itself. This is what happens in the business logic. Because most of the times people never check all these things. The first thing I suggest you to check is the variables, the information of the variables. What does it has? Then you will understand how it is working. Because we have not created any query object, any query build data source, any query run. The form has done all those automatically for us. The form has done all those automatically for us. From execute query, where did it go? It went into the form. Let's see. Okay, so please remember these methods. These are very, very important. Now, what you can do in execute query, if you want to manipulate a query, let's say while executing, you want to add a range to the data source, which is Hyderabad. How can you do that? To do that, you can use execute query method. Now I have the country here. I will click on this edit button, and what I will do is I will make everything capital. INDIA. Okay, where did it go? Validate of the field, data source field, and then from this validate, where did it go? Modified. Now you know one more thing. I have added breakpoints only to the form methods. If you add breakpoints to the table methods, from form data source method, it will go to the table method and then it will process the data. Please remember, this is very, very important. Where will it go? From form data source methods, it will go into the table methods and then process the data. Okay, I want you to add a breakpoints and check. It got modified. Now the city. Let me modify this city, because for this city, we have added the methods at the control level. Where did it go? String control. String control. And then it went to the validate, and then it went into the modify. Now you will get it out. Oh, then actually it is working for string control and data source as well. Where to write the code and when, how we need to decide. The methods are given at the string control level because the controls are of different types. We have the bounded control and unbounded control. Let's say you want to work with unbounded control and then the methods of the unbounded control. Then what you can do? You can write, validate, and everything on the unbounded control. If you need to do that, you should have the methods at the control level. Okay, because sometimes we will have the requirement where the customer should input the data and we need to fetch on the basis of the data. Okay, please remember, this is one more thing that you need to understand. Okay, so this is how the methods are organized. Now I told you that. Okay, let me close the form. It's done. Close. Where did it go? Validate right. When you close the form, it went into the validate right. Or you can click on the save button as well. Then as well it will come to validate right. From here it will go to right. From there again it will go to table methods and then it will come back. Now the form is closed. Okay, done. Now the form is closed. This is how we work with the methods. Okay, and now you know how to write the code and what to write it. You can set auto declaration to yes, as we have done in table of contents, and then you can write the code for the controls. Okay, you can write code for the controls. Now one more thing,
What does a write method does in this case? It's going to
It,
write on the table.
it's not directly going to write on the table. Okay, the write method is used to insert or update the data. Okay, what it will do is, first of all, this write method will get called and then it will go to table level. Insert, update, delete, AOS validate, insert, AOS validate, update, AOS validate, delete. Do you remember all those methods? Write, validate
Yes,
method.
yes.
It will go to those methods. And then if there is any validation there, it will check that validation and then it will go to AOS validate method and then the update, insert or deletion will be done. Okay. From
For
here
the
it will not
selected
directly
record
use.
table buffer. For the
Yes,
selected table buffer. Okay.
yes, for the selected. Okay. Now, this is one more thing. Now, I think you understood how these are working. Now, let me do one thing. Execute query. Here as well, the people will have a big confusion. Now, I want to write a query. I want to use the data source and then I want to add a range. Where I need to add the range exactly? This is the biggest question that everyone will have. You can add the range, whether we need to write the code before the super or after the super. So while further, you need to know what happens while executing this super call. What happens while executing that super call? Super parent. What is the form of the parent of the form data source? It's the table. Okay, and here from execute query, where it will go? It will read the data from the data. So do you want to add the query before getting the data from database or after getting the data from database? We need to get the we need to modify the query before getting the data from database. So which is why you need to write your query after the super, sorry, before the super of the execute query. And sometimes, people had one more confusion. I want to add one more data source using the XPP query. Where to add? You need to do that in the init method. Okay, you need to do that in the init method. Here as well, people used to get doubt whether I need to do that before the super or after the super. That's up to you again. Okay, because before the super or after the super, here you need to do after the super. Why? Because the data source initialization should be done, then only you would be able to add your query. Is that right? Data source initialization will be done when the super got called, and then you can modify the query as you want. Now you might ask me, oh, you're saying if I want to add the data source, do that in the init method. If I want to add the range, do that in the execute query method. Why? Now here, there is one important thing you need to understand. Whenever you're executing, whenever you're adding the data source, it needs some memory. How many times or execute query will get called and how many times init will get called? Init will get called only once while opening the form, whereas execute query will get called whenever we want to update the data on the screen. We will call execute query. So each and every time if you call execute query and if you go on adding the data source, what will happen? The memory will get increased and the size is limited. Okay, because in case of AX 2012 you used to set 24 KB or 50 KB or something like that. Okay, at the server configuration we will do that. So if you do that 20 KB or 50 KB, it's very less here. As it is very less, what will happen? The buffer will get overloaded automatically and you will not be able to pull the data itself. It should not happen. That there is a performance impact in that case. So what we will do? We are going to write it in init method when you are adding the data sources, execute query method when you are adding the ranges. Now how to add the range? To add the range, the first thing we need is a data source. Now you can see what is the data source name, ICI address. So you can come here and then you can simply say ICI address. Can you see this? Underscore data source underscore query. This is might be query range or whatever. Query run. Sorry, QR means query run. Okay, you have the query data source and all this. Okay, query dot. Oh, I'm not getting anything. Let me check data source dot. I got it. Okay, data source dot. Let me check the methods. I don't remember. Query. So here, if you open the query, what will happen? You will add the query of the data source dot add. If you want to add one more data source, you can add one more data source. For address, you want to add the customers. You can add the data source and you can add the customers by using this XPP query. You want to add the range. Let's check. Oh, there is no range. Then how to add it? Okay. Query dot data source. You have the number, data source name. You have the data source table. Whatever you want to use, you can use here. I have only one data source, so I can say data source number in the bracket 1. If you want to have the data source name, use data source str. Okay, dot for data source you have the range in the bracket. You can say int range number. Oh, it is very bad. It is asking the range number, but I don't have the query build range here. So what you can do? Dot add range, and then in the bracket it is expecting the field num. You can say field num, and then in the bracket you can say ICI address comma state, and then you can set dot value, and in the value you can say whatever you want now. Okay, I will say Telangana and then semicolon. Done. Now I have done. I wrote the query. Now let's see what happens with this. Okay. I want to run and I want to see what happens. Okay. Where did it came? Yeah. Init. Okay. 1 second. It's still loading. Seems like loaded completely. Continue. Come on. Okay. Now again click on continue. Now run and then execute query. Now let's see whether the query got modified or not. I am interested to check that. Okay. Now let me copy this. Copy, copy, copy. And paste, paste, paste. Where? State equal to Telangana. Got it? This is how we work. Okay. This is the use of XPP queries. Now let's try to see that range because I have defined the range, but I want to see whether that range is appearing and whether I can get all the data because my table has a lot of data and user wants to remove the range. I want to see. I want to see how it works. Just a second. Let's wait. Now here it says, can you see this? It says there is a filter. And then let's wait. It's loading. What is that filter? I want to see. Telangana. If the end user wants to remove that filter, he can remove and he can apply. That's the default filter. Now again it came to execute query, but not the init. This is what I said. Okay. Now continue. Let's see what happens. He got all the data. Got it? This is how.
Here it comes in execute query and again fire the query filter.
Yes. Yeah, but nothing is going to happen. It will not consider that
Yeah.
because the filter is empty, na. Now, if you go and check the query, the filter will be empty, which indicates to fetch all the data.
Okay, but we
Okay.
hard coded provided the value.
Yeah. Here it's hard coded. If you want to get it
Then
from the value, you can get it from the form control as well.
no,
You can get it.
I mean to ask, you have removed that from filter clause, and then it comes to execute query, and this line would get bypassed.
Yeah, it will not take. That's what it will not take. That's what I want to show.
Yeah,
Okay, because
okay.
this is what we do, and then we will try. And actually, there is a filter enabled. I saw that method somewhere. Okay, if you want to disable that filter now, you can disable that. Because sometimes what people will ask is the customer will have a requirement where he wants to get the data based on the filter, and he don't want that filter to be modified. You can disable that. There will be a property called filter enabled, and you can disable that. Okay, that's also possible. Got it? Next, I'm thinking just a second. The form methods and how to work with them and getting the data. Yep, that's it. Yeah, these are the form methods and how you are going to work with the control methods and how you are going to validate and how you are going to modify and all those things. Yeah, now it's your time. Please let me know if you have any queries. And there will be session tomorrow as well. Please join. Okay, the session will start at 8 tomorrow. Oh,
Yeah. Please come on that execute query.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Suppose if I write the same code, I add
Mhm.
ICS address, then query, and then
Mhm.
all after super, then it will again go to database and execute that query.
1 second. Now let's think
Uh,
what will happen. Okay. Now I will remove this and then I will write it after super. What will happen? Your query has executed, data is already
okay.
returned. Okay. Super. What
Yeah.
super is doing? Executing the query, returning the data. Data is returned. After that, you
Yes.
added the query. Is there any use of it?
No.
It will not get
Yeah.
applied.
That's why thinking. It
Yes,
will
it will
not
not get
go.
applied.
Okay. It will not go again to the database. There would be no any
No.
database strip for that.
Yes. Yes, there will be no database strip. Any other questions?
Tomorrow and after tomorrow is off.
No, no. Tomorrow we will have the session. It will start at morning 8 o'clock, the same time. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks all for the session. Let's meet again tomorrow, same time. Thank you all. Bye. Yeah.